Hi guys, it's Tim and Toby back for the second episode of how Germany lost the war, the Second World War. Last episode we looked at the invasion, the very easily done invasion of Sicily by the British and American troops, mainly down to the helping from the SOE agents with planting a fake major, a fake body with ID documents, basically telling the German troops that we're going to land troops on Greece, which of course they never did. The actual target was Sicily. That's why it was so easy to invade. That was Operation Mincemeat, actually, as it was codenamed. So this episode, episode 2, we'll be looking at the actual main Italian campaign from July 43 to February 1945. So, whilst the Allied troops, the Allied troops meaning the American 5th Army under General George S. Patton, and the British 8th Army under Bernard Montgomery, which I've got an original British 8th Army cloth insignia, or shoulder title, here, which they would have worn. Montgomery, not Montgomery's, of course, his, that'd be brilliant if it was, but an example of a one manufactured during the war. But yeah, that's 8th Army. So it's 8th Army, meaning the American and British had held Sicily for a couple of days, and then they pressed on with the actual Italian campaign. So, whilst the British had pushed through Sicily into Italy through Messines and through a place called Colenso, that's kind of the just on the heel of Italy. The Americans moved around. The American 5th Army under Patton moved around to the very famous invasion of Salerno, which is very famous in American military history, Salerno, and then Anzio, which would be, we'll tell you about later. And so the British 8th Army under Montgomery had to link up with the 5th Army under General Patton, because what they had in front of them was a massive fortificationed German line known as the Hitler Line, or officially known as the Gustav Line, which Toby will kindly introduce us to it.
Yes, so the Germans, having been forced back a bit up Italy, they decided more or less that instead of just running away, they needed somewhere to stabilise the front, otherwise they'd be just straight up driven out of Italy for good. Similar to what happened during Operation Cobra in Normandy, they didn't want that scenario happening, so they decided to use the mountains and the natural terrain to the very best of their ability to dig in and create some very, very, very well designed defensive lines, defended by, some really, I would say, in a way, underrated troops. So you have people like the Fallschirmjägers there, you have Luftwaffe ground divisions, you have the Hermann Göring Panzer Division, uniquely having panzers and stuff. And yeah, just overall a very difficult line to crack. So it proved. I mean, we made literally no gains for a while. In conditions reminiscent, really, of the First World War, to be honest. And we really got held back at Monte Cassino, which we'll talk a bit about in a minute. And as a result of that, the Americans decided to launch an attack at Anzio, but in the end, it ended up being Monte Cassino that rescued Anzio, rather than Anzio rescuing Monte Cassino as it was supposed to be.
Right, thanks Toby. Well said. So, just to reiterate there, the Gustav Line was basically modified, if you can say, by using German Tiger tanks, their gun turret buried right into the ground and used as kind of stationary artillery with barbed wire mines, a lot of it, just like the Hindenburg Line, which was built, well not built, but around in 1917, 1918. Kind of very similar, kind of how wars can really be very different, but then in the same be very similar. So Monte Cassino was a massive, huge mountain with a massive castle on the top, and it's very famous because the US and British armoured units, tanks, trucks, jeeps, wanted to actually get up there and flush the German Fallschirmjägers paratroopers out of where they were stationed in at the right at the top, the church or the castle of Monte Cassino, right at the top, basically shooting us Americans and British basically, down there like fishes in a barrel. It was so easy. They had the high ground. So the reason why the British and Americans couldn't send armoured or trucks units up there because of the high terrain, because it was just impossible. So they had to send American and British troops up there themselves. So after they had realised that jeeps and trucks and tanks couldn't climb up mountains, they sent the US bomber B-17 bombers to go over, but whilst they were bombing the area, British and American troops were already up there, so you had a bit of a massive casualty loss with friendly fire from B-17 bombers, blowing everything they could out of Monte Cassino, but also killing their own guys in the process, which was quite sad. My grandfather, who, as I've told you before, was actually at Monte Cassino, and he, from what he said, but I mean I wasn't born when he was, he was alive in the 21st century. That was, he died before I was born, but he basically described that it was a bloodbath, complete bloodbath. But yeah, we finally reached the top of Monte Cassino and finally basically combined our efforts to kick the Germans out of there. But then there was a second obstacle in the way, known as the Gothic Line, which is basically kind of the reserve line to the Gustav Line, kind of the second stagnant second point where the Germans could defend from. So do you want to say a bit of that, Toby?
Yes, so Gothic Line and others, so there were some pretty interesting features of these lines. So, in Italy in some places, there were actually what's been described as panther turrets dug into the ground in a concrete bunker, which, is going to be fairly devastating, obviously,